Contact forms are essential for any website, enabling the collection of customer or visitor feedback and inquiries. In this quick video, we'll create this simple yet fully functional contact form using HTML and CSS. We will also link it to Gmail to receive messages directly in our Gmail account. The form will collect the visitor's name, email address, subject, and the message. Below the form, we will include icons for alternative contact methods. Let me quickly show you how this works. We use the name Stallone, a dummy email account, and quick inquiry as the subject. For the message, we'll enter, "How much do you charge for a full brand design? From logo to website." After sending, the form will be successfully submitted to our Gmail inbox. To return to the contact page, click here. Now, let's confirm if the details are in our Gmail inbox. In our account, we see a new message. Titled New Form Submission on Contact Form. It contains the email we entered, the subject, and the message. To reply to the inquiry, simply click on the email, enter the subject, compose the message, and send the reply. To create the form and link it to Gmail, we'll follow 4 steps. First, we'll create the base files. Second, we'll build the form using HTML. Third, we'll style it with CSS. Lastly, we'll link it to Gmail. I'll include timestamps in the description, so feel free to skip to the part you need. Create a new folder, named Contact Page, and open it in VS Code. For this project, I recommend using the following extensions. While there are alternatives, these are my preferences due to their functionality. The first one is Live Server by Ritwick Day. This extension enables us to launch a local development server with a live reload feature. Therefore, any changes we make will automatically display in the browser. The second is HTML to CSS auto-completion. This extension provides completion suggestions for classes and IDs from markup documents to style sheets. If you have extensions that perform similar functions, you might not need these. It's just my preference. Create a new file named index.html. Then, create another file for styles called style.css. Start by setting up a basic HTML structure, and giving it a title. Below the title, link the CSS file. Next, open the file with Live Server. Below the CSS link, add external icons, from Boxicons. To do this, visit Boxicons, go to the Usage section, scroll down to Usage as a font, and copy the provided link. Finally, we need to link the font we will use. Go to Google Fonts and search for the font named Zine. Here it is. Get the font. Get the embed code. I want to embed the font in the HTML file. So, I will copy this one. Then paste it in the head. In the CSS, we target all elements on the page using a wildcard selector. Then set the font family to Zine and provide sans serif as a fallback. This ensures a consistent font across the entire web page. Next, we style the body of the document. We'll start by setting the background color to a light gray. the text color to a dark gray, providing a clean and modern look. We then remove any default margin and padding that might be applied by browsers. This ensures our layout starts with a blank slate, avoiding unexpected spacing issues. The height of the body is set to 100 viewport height, meaning that the body will always take up the full height of the browser window, making it easier to vertically center content. To center content both horizontally and vertically, we'll use Flexbox. By setting the display property to Flex, we enable Flexbox layout. Then, use Justify Content to center to align items horizontally. Align items, center, aligns them vertically. This combination perfectly centers any content within the body. First, we'll create a container using a div element with the class contact section. This container will hold all the content for our contact section. Inside this container, we'll add another div with the class contact form. Inside the contact form div, we'll add a heading element, using a h2 tag with the text contact us. This heading clearly indicates the purpose of the section to the users. Following the heading, we'll add a paragraph to write a welcoming message. For example, welcome. We're excited to hear from you. This is what we have. Below the paragraph, add a form, with an empty action, and method attribute. Inside it, add a div with class input group. In the group, we'll have our first input, with type text, a placeholder, enter your name, and it will be required. Duplicate these to get the second input. This will have a type, email. A placeholder, enter your email. A name, email, and an ID, email. Below the input group div, we'll add another input, with type set to text, a placeholder, set to subject. It will also have a name, message. Below it, we add a text area, with name, message. And a placeholder, your message. It will also be required. After the text area, we need a button, which will say send message. It will have a type submit. Nice, this is what we have for now. Next, we need an icon in this button. Back in Boxicons, we will go back to home. In here, search for send. I prefer this. Click on font, then copy it. Paste it after the send message text. Here it is. Lastly, let's add social icons below the contact form. Create a div with class social icons. This icons will be in a link, and I'm leaving it blank for now. Back in Boxicons, we will search for WhatsApp. Choose the one you prefer, copy it, and paste it here. We need 3 more icons, therefore, we will duplicate this 3 times, then change the other icons as shown. Finally, this is what we have before the styling. For this part, we'll arrange the live server and VS Code side by side to easily observe the styles we apply. We'll start by targeting the contact section. To target the contact section, we don't need to type the whole class name. Using the HTML to CSS auto-completion extension, we only need some part of the class name. For example, when I type COSE, the extension provides completed suggestions. We begin by setting the display property to flex, enabling a flexbox layout and facilitating item arrangement within the section. Next, we define the flex direction as column, ensuring items are arranged vertically within the section. Adding a padding of 50 pixels creates space inside the section, preventing content from touching the edges. To ensure predictable sizing, we set the box sizing property to border box, including padding in the total width and height calculations. Setting the width to 100% allows the section to occupy the full width of its container. Finally, we set the max width to 600 pixels, preventing the section from extending too wide. Next, let's target the contact form. For the contact form, I will set the width to 100%. This instructs the browser to make the contact form element to take up the entire width of its parent container. This is particularly useful for responsive design, ensuring that the form adjusts its width dynamically based on the size of the parent container. For the heading, set the font size to 40 pixels. Then align the text to the center. Next up, the paragraph. Set its font size to 16 pixels. Change its color to this light gray. For alignment, make it centered. Next up, the form. Add a margin on the top of 20 pixels. Moving on, we target the input group. Set the element's display mode to flexbox. Justify content to space between. This property distributes the space between child elements so that the first item is aligned to the start, the last item is aligned to the end, and the space between each pair of items is equal. Next up, we target this text input, the email input, the message input, and this text area. We will first target the input elements of type text. Next, we target elements of type email that are descendants of elements with the class input group. We also target elements of type text, with a placeholder attribute equal to subject. And lastly, we target the text area. Add a padding of 10 pixels inside the element, to create space inside the element, making the element's content area larger. Add a 20 pixel margin below the elements. This will create a space between the element and the next element below it, ensuring there is vertical spacing between form fields. Add a border that is 1 pixel wide, solid, and light gray around the elements. This border visually separates the elements from their background and other elements. Set the font size of the text inside the elements to 14 pixels. This ensures a consistent text size for better readability. Change the text color inside the elements to a medium gray. Lastly, we need to get rid of this default outline. So, set the outline to none. I just noticed an error here. The styles we've added should also apply to this subject field. Let's correct that by changing this class to contact form. Great, there we have it. Moving on, we need to add a focus effect on all these input areas and the text area. We will first copy them, paste them here, then add a pseudo class focus, which will apply styles to all the elements when they are in focus. So on focus, we want a border of 2 pixels, which is solid, and of this green color. Next up, we target this text input for the name. For the width, we're taking 50% of the available width and subtracting 5 pixels. This is useful for creating layouts that need a little spacing without using additional margins or paddings. We will also do the same for the email input, but here, we add a margin left property set to 10 pixel. This creates a 10 pixel space to the left of the email input, providing some space between elements. Next, the subject. For its width, we're taking 100% of the available width and subtracting 20 pixels. This ensures the input field spans nearly the full width of its container, with a 10 pixel margin on each side. Moving on, we target the text area. For its width, we're also taking 100% of the available width and subtracting 20 pixels. We set the height property to 100 pixels. This specifies the height of the text area to be 100 pixels, providing enough space for the user to input their message. Finally, we use the resize property set to none. This disables the resizing functionality, ensuring the text area remains at the specified dimensions, and cannot be resized by the user. Let us now style the button. Start by giving it a green background color. Change the text color of the button to white, ensuring good contrast and readability. Add a padding of 15 pixels, adding some space inside the button. Remove the existing border. Set the width property to 100%, making the button span the full width of its container. Adjust the font size to 16 pixels. Change the cursor to a pointer when hovering over the button, indicating that it is clickable. And lastly, add a transition, which will change all the button property values smoothly, for 0.4 seconds, with an ease in out timing function. We've already styled our button with various properties including transition. The transition property allows us to create a smooth effect for changes to the button's properties over a specified duration. Now, let's add a hover effect. When the user hovers over the button, we want the background color to change to a darker shade of green. So, if we hover over the button, the background color transition happens smoothly over 0.4 seconds. Instead of changing instantly, the color fades, creating a polished and interactive experience. Finally, let's style the social icons. Add a padding of 10 pixels on the top and bottom, 12 pixels on the left and right. Set the background color of each icon to white. Add a border of 1 pixel solid around each icon with a color of light gray. Set the color of the icon itself to this medium gray. Add a margin around each icon of 0 pixels for the top and bottom and 10 pixels on the left and right, giving a space between each icon. And finally, add a transition, similar to the one we used on the button. One more thing. Let's target the container element that holds the social media icons. Turn the container to a flex container to allow easy alignment and distribution of the social media icons inside the container. Justify content center to align the social icons along the main axis of the flex container. And lastly, add a margin of 1.5 rem to the top of the container to create some space between the social media icons and the content above them. Now, let's enhance the interactivity by adding a hover effect. When hovering, we'll change the icon color to white and the background to a darker green. Great. Let's review the final design. Currently, the form can accept inputs. But it doesn't send or store them anywhere. Let's address that in the next part. In your browser, open formspree.io. This is a platform designed to facilitate the handling of form submissions for static websites. It allows developers to collect form data without requiring a back-end server. To get started, click here. Then fill the form with your details and register. Go ahead and verify these if you have to. Fill the questionnaires appropriately. And then submit. After these steps, you have to verify the email you submitted during registration. Let's go ahead and do that. Open the message and click on Verify. Complete these simple steps, and the email will be verified. To use the mail, click here. Add a new form. I'm calling it Contact Form. Then create form. Next up, since we have already added a name attribute to each input, we only need to paste this URL in the action attribute, and also change the method to post. So, copy it, go back in our code, and in the HTML, paste it in the action attribute. And set the method to post. Let's now test the form to verify if it will successfully send the message to our Gmail inbox. I will proceed by using some dummy data, and then submit the form. As we can see, the form was submitted successfully. To return to the form, please click here. Next, I will confirm whether all the data was sent to our Gmail account. In our inbox, we have received a new message from Formspree. Upon opening it, we find all the data we submitted in the form earlier, including the email address, subject, and message. To reply to the sender of this message, simply click on their email address, and you will be able to compose a response. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and that you're now able to create and integrate your own contact forms seamlessly. If you have any questions or need further clarification, feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tutorials and tips. Until next time, happy coding!